The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, and for a moment, the only sound in the ballroom was the tinkling of crystal shards scattering across white tile. 200 of Atlanta's wealthiest stood frozen, their eyes locked on 3 small children walking across the room. Welcome back, my friends and family. This is part 2 of our beautiful story. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I truly invite you to go back and experience the beginning of this emotional journey. But if you've already walked with us through part 1, then sit back, open your heart, and let's continue together, because what comes next will touch you even deeper. I'd given her a key to the service entrance weeks ago. She came every night now, not even bothering to hide it anymore. I couldn't stay away, she said softly. I know. She came into the room and stood beside Nora's bed, looking down at her daughter. Can I hold her? Of course. She lifted Nora with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this before, cradling her close and humming that same hymn. Nora settled against her immediately, completely at peace. And watching them together, I saw it so clearly. The same nose, the same curve of the cheekbone, the same peaceful expression when they were content. They were mirror images separated by time. I have to tell you something, Naomi said quietly, still holding Nora. When I gave her up, the grief almost killed me. I went into a depression so deep I couldn't get out of bed for months. My husband, Marcus, he saved me. He helped me find purpose again. But there was always this hole in my heart, this missing piece. She looked at me, her eyes full of pain and hope tangled together. When Marcus died, I thought I'd never feel whole again. Thought I'd lost my chance at happiness. But then I came here. And the first time I saw Nora, something in me woke up. Like my soul recognized her, even though my mind couldn't accept it. I think souls always know, I said. Do you believe in fate, Mr. Harrington? Call me Damon. And yes, I think I'm starting to. She smiled through her tears. My grandmother used to say that God takes broken things and makes them beautiful. That nothing is wasted. Not even pain. Maybe she was right. We stayed there together until dawn, taking turns holding the children, talking quietly about everything and nothing. She told me about her childhood in South Carolina, about her grandmother who raised her, about the gospel choir she sang in as a teenager. I told her about building my first development project, about the early years with Vivian before everything fell apart, about the fear I felt when the triplets were born so early and the doctors said they might not survive. It was the most honest conversation I'd had in years. Maybe ever. When the sun came up, Naomi reluctantly handed Nora back to me and prepared to leave before the day staff arrived. At the door, she paused. Damon, what if the test comes back and I'm not her mother? What if this has all been wishful thinking? Then you're still the woman who brought my children back to life. And you'll still be part of this family, if you want to be. She nodded, but I could see the fear in her eyes. The terror that she was wrong. That she'd let herself hope for something impossible. After she left, I got the children ready for the day with help from the morning nurse. Liam was bearing more weight on his legs now, actually standing for a few seconds with support. Ezra had started making consonant sounds, B-A and ma and Nora was reaching for toys, trying to grasp them with increasing coordination. 3 weeks ago, they'd been almost catatonic. Now they were waking up, bit by bit, day by day. And it was all because of Naomi. Dr. Patel called at noon. I have preliminary results. Can you come to my office? Tell me now. He hesitated. Damon, the test is a 99.9% match. Naomi Brooks is definitely Nora's biological mother. I sat down hard in my chair, the phone pressed to my ear. You're sure? Completely sure. I've never seen a clearer result. After we hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, just processing. Part of me had known, had been certain from the moment Naomi's face went pale when I mentioned the clinic. But having scientific proof was different. This was real, undeniable. Nora was Naomi's daughter, which meant Vivian had been lying for 3 years, had taken another woman's child and claimed her as her own, had erased a mother from her daughter's life without a second thought. I called Naomi. Where are you? Home. Why? Did something happen? The test results came back. She's yours, Naomi. Nora is your daughter." The sound she made was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "She's mine. She's yours. Oh my God. Oh my God, Damon, she's really mine?" "Yes." She broke down completely then, crying so hard she couldn't speak. I waited, letting her process, my own eyes burning with tears I refused to shed. When she finally caught her breath, she asked, "What do we do now?" "Tomorrow night at the ball, I'm going to tell the truth. All of it. In front of everyone." "Damon, that's insane. The press will destroy you. Vivian will never forgive you." "I don't care about the press. And I stopped caring about Vivian's forgiveness a long time ago. This is about Nora. About you. About doing what's right. What if they take her away from me again?" "They won't. I won't let them." "You can't promise that." "Yes, I can. I'm her father, Naomi. You're her mother. And we're going to fight for her together." There was a long silence. Then, quietly, she said, "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow's going to be chaos. I don't care. I get to be her mother. Really be her mother. Nothing else matters." That evening, Vivian returned from her sister's house. She walked past me without speaking, went straight to her room, and started preparing for the ball. The dress, the jewelry, the hair and makeup team she'd hired. She was building her armor, piece by piece, getting ready to face the world with the perfect smile and the perfect lie. I didn't tell her about the test results. Didn't warn her what was coming. Maybe that made me cruel. But she'd had 3 years to tell me the truth. 3 years to be honest. She'd chosen deception every single day. Tomorrow, that choice would have consequences. I went to check on the children one last time before bed. They were already asleep, all 3 of them peaceful and calm. I kissed Liam's forehead, then Ezra's. When I got to Nora, I whispered, "Your mama's coming home, baby girl. For real this time." She stirred slightly, her lips curving into a small smile even in sleep. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about tomorrow. About standing in front of 200 people and admitting that my marriage was a fraud, that my wife had lied about our daughter's birth, that the maid everyone overlooked was actually the biological mother of my child. It would be a scandal. It would be in every newspaper, every gossip site, every social media platform by morning. My business partners would panic. Vivian's family would retaliate. The foundation we'd built would probably collapse. But when I thought about Naomi's face when I told her the test results, when I remembered the way Nora looked at her with complete trust and love, I knew I was making the right choice. Some things matter more than reputation, more than money, more than keeping up appearances. Truth matters. Love matters. Family matters. And tomorrow night, the whole world was going to find out what those words really meant. If you've ever had to choose between what's easy and what's right, drop a comment below. Because that's the choice I was facing. And there was no going back. Stay subscribed because the charity ball is next. The moment everything explodes. The moment 3 children walk for the first time. The moment Nora says the words that change everything. You don't want to miss this. Christmas Eve arrived cold and clear, the kind of Atlanta winter day that made everything look sharp and bright. The estate was transformed by morning. White lights wrapped every column. Ice sculptures gleamed in the garden. Caterers filled the kitchen. A string quartet practiced in the ballroom. Vivian moved through it all like a general inspecting troops, her face a mask of controlled perfection. She still hadn't spoken to me directly. All communication went through Mrs. Chen or the event coordinator. Fine by me. I had nothing to say to her anyway. At 2 in the afternoon, Dr. Patel arrived under the pretense of doing a final check on the children before their big appearance. But really, he came to give me the official documentation. The full DNA report, printed and sealed in an envelope. "This is going to change a lot of lives," he said, handing it to me. "It already has." He glanced toward the ballroom where workers were setting up chairs. "You're really going to do this? Tonight?" "I am. Damon, I've known you for 5 years. I've never seen you make an impulsive decision. This is about as far from your character as I can imagine. Maybe that's the problem, I said quietly. Maybe I've spent too long being careful and calculated, making decisions based on what looks good instead of what is good. He put a hand on my shoulder. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Those children are thriving because of Naomi, and Nora deserves to know her mother. After he left, I went upstairs to the nursery. Naomi was there, even though it was her day off. She was helping the children into the special outfits Vivian had ordered for tonight. Little formal wear, tailored and expensive. Liam in a tiny suit. Ezra in a matching one. Nora in a white velvet dress. You came, I said. I couldn't stay away. Not today. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. Hands shaking slightly as she buttoned Ezra's jacket. I'd called her last night after Vivian went to bed and told her the plan. She'd begged me to reconsider. Said she didn't want to ruin my life. I told her she wasn't ruining anything. She was fixing what had been broken all along. How are you feeling? I asked. Terrified. Excited. Sick to my stomach. All of it at once. Nora reached for her, making a small sound. Naomi picked her up instinctively, holding her close. Nora laid her head on Naomi's shoulder with complete trust. She knows. Naomi whispered. Somehow she knows I'm her mama. Children always know, I said. We're the ones who forget how to see clearly. Vivian appeared in the doorway suddenly, making us both jump. What is she doing here? Helping with the children, I said calmly. That's what the nurses are for. Vivian's eyes were hard and cold. I told you to keep her away from them. And I told you I wouldn't. Vivian's gaze shifted to Naomi, who was still holding Nora. Put my daughter down. Naomi hesitated, looking at me. I nodded slightly. She gently set Nora back in her adaptive seat. Nora immediately started whimpering, reaching back toward Naomi. Vivian's jaw tightened. I want her out of this house. Today. Now. No. Damon, I'm not asking. Neither am I said, stepping closer to Vivian. She stays. And tonight, everyone's going to know why. Vivian's face went pale. You wouldn't dare. Watch me. We stared at each other, years of resentment and betrayal crackling between us. Finally, Vivian turned sharply and walked away, her heels striking the floor like hammer blows. Naomi was shaking. She's going to destroy me. She's going to try. But she won't succeed. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Guests started arriving at 6. Atlanta's wealthiest and most influential, dressed in designer gowns and custom tuxedos. I recognized senators, CEOs, old money families, new tech billionaires. The ballroom filled with champagne and conversation and the kind of laughter that sounded expensive. Vivian was in her element, gliding from group to group, air-kissing cheeks, telling stories about the foundation's work. She looked stunning in a silver gown that probably cost $30,000. The perfect hostess. The perfect wife. The perfect lie. I stayed near the edge of the room, watching, waiting. My heart was pounding so hard I thought people could probably see it through my shirt. At 7:30, the program was supposed to begin. Vivian would give a welcome speech. I'd say a few words about the foundation. Then we'd bring out the children for a carefully staged moment showing their progress. Photo opportunity. Tears and applause. Donations pouring in. That was the plan. But I had a different plan now. At 7:15, I went upstairs one last time. Naomi was in the nursery with the children and both nurses. She'd changed into a simple black dress I'd bought for her that afternoon. Nothing fancy. But she looked beautiful. You ready? I asked. No. But I'll never be ready for this. So let's just do it. I nodded to the nurses. Bring them down in 10 minutes. Side entrance to the ballroom. Wait for my signal. They looked confused but agreed. I'd been signing their paychecks for 3 years. They weren't going to argue. Naomi and I went downstairs together, using the service stairs so we wouldn't be seen. We waited in the small room adjacent to the ballroom, listening to the crowd settle, listening to Vivian's voice over the microphone. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Your generosity changes lives, including the lives of my own 3 beautiful children. My hands clenched into fists. As many of you know, our triplets were born with developmental challenges that doctors said might be permanent. But we never gave up hope. And tonight, I'm thrilled to share that we've seen remarkable progress. The crowd murmured appreciatively. Naomi grabbed my hand. I can't do this. Damon, I can't walk out there in front of all those people. You don't have to. Just stay with the children. I'll do the talking. What if they hate me? What if they think I'm trying to steal your daughter? You're not stealing anything. She's already yours. Before she could respond, Vivian's voice rang out again. And now, I'd like to invite my husband Damon to say a few words. This was it. I stepped into the ballroom. 200 faces turned toward me. Cameras flashed. I walked to the small stage where Vivian stood, her smile perfect and poisonous. I took the microphone from her hand. She tried to keep smiling, but I saw the fear flash in her eyes. Thank you, Vivian. I looked out at the crowd. All these powerful people in their expensive clothes, holding their champagne, expecting a nice tidy story about charity and hope. They were about to get something very different. I want to talk to you tonight about truth, I began. About what it costs to hide it, and what it takes to finally tell it. Vivian's smile faltered. She stepped toward me slightly, her voice low. Damon, what are you doing? I ignored her. 3 years ago, my wife and I welcomed triplets into our lives. Liam, Ezra, and Nora. They were born premature, fragile, fighting for every breath. And as they grew, we watched them struggle with developmental delays that broke our hearts. The room was completely silent now. We spent millions on specialists, on therapies, on experimental treatments. Nothing worked. Our children remained locked away from us, unable to speak or walk or connect. Until 3 weeks ago. I paused, letting the words settle. 3 weeks ago, a woman came to work in our home. A maid. Someone most people in this room wouldn't even notice. Her name is Naomi Brooks. And in 3 weeks, she did something that 3 years of expensive medicine couldn't do. She reached my children. She brought them back to life. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. How did she do it? Some of you might be wondering, what special training did she have? What technique? I looked directly at Vivian. Her face had gone white. The answer is love. Unconditional, pure, instinctive love. The kind of love only a mother has for her child. Vivian grabbed my arm. Stop. Right now. I pulled away from her. Because Naomi Brooks isn't just our maid. She's the biological mother of our daughter Nora. The ballroom exploded. Gasps. Shouts. Cameras flashing like lightning. Vivian stumbled backward, her hand over her mouth. I kept talking, my voice cutting through the chaos. 3 years ago, my wife used a surrogate to carry one of our children. She never told me. She falsified records, paid off a clinic, and erased the biological mother from our daughter's life. That woman was Naomi, and she's been searching for her child ever since. A reporter near the front shouted a question, but I kept going. 2 days ago, I had DNA tests done. Scientific proof that Nora is Naomi's biological daughter. And tonight, I'm going to do what should have been done 3 years ago. I'm going to reunite a mother with her child. I signaled to the side entrance. The nurses appeared, guiding the children in their adaptive equipment. But then something happened that no one expected. Liam saw Naomi standing near the doorway. And he walked. Not with support. Not with assistance. He walked on his own, taking shaky but determined steps across that ballroom floor toward her. The crowd went silent. Absolutely silent. Then Ezra followed. Pushing himself up from his chair and toddling forward, his face lit up with pure joy. And finally, Nora. My daughter. Naomi's daughter. She stood up, her little legs trembling, and she walked straight to Naomi with her arms outstretched. Naomi dropped to her knees, sobbing, gathering all 3 children into her arms. They clung to her, and for the first time in 3 years, I heard my children laugh. Real, genuine, beautiful laughter. Cameras were going crazy. People were crying. Someone was shouting about calling the authorities. Vivian had collapsed into a chair, her perfect facade shattered completely. But I only saw Naomi and the children. The way they fit together like pieces of a puzzle that had finally found their proper places. I walked over and knelt beside them. Nora looked up at me with those serious brown eyes. Then she looked at Naomi. And she said her first complete sentence. "Mama, don't go." 3 words. The same 3 words that had stopped time at the beginning of this story. Except now, everyone heard them. Everyone understood what they meant. Naomi pulled Nora closer, tears streaming down her face. "Never. Baby. I'm never leaving you again." The ballroom was chaos. Reporters shouting questions. Guests arguing. Vivian's family members pushing toward the stage. Security trying to control the situation. But in the middle of it all was peace. A mother and her children. A truth that couldn't be hidden anymore. A love that had survived 3 years of separation and lies. I looked up and saw my lawyer Marcus fighting through the crowd toward me. Behind him were 2 police officers. My stomach dropped. "Mr. Harrington," Marcus said urgently. "Mrs. Harrington has filed an emergency petition. She's trying to get a restraining order against Naomi. Claims she's an unstable employee trying to kidnap the children." Of course she did. One of the officers stepped forward. "Sir, we need everyone to calm down. Can you explain what's happening here?" So I did. Right there, in front of everyone, with cameras rolling and the whole world watching. I explained everything. The surrogate arrangement. The lies. The DNA test. Naomi's rights as a biological mother. The officer looked at Naomi, still kneeling on the floor with 3 children wrapped around her. "Ma'am, did you willingly give up parental rights 3 years ago?" "I was coerced," Naomi said quietly but firmly. "I was told I had no choice. That I'd be selfish to keep a baby I couldn't provide for. I signed papers I didn't fully understand because I was scared and alone." "Do you have proof of coercion?" "I have Dr. Sullivan's records from the clinic," I said, pulling out my phone. Emails showing the pressure they put on her. Payment records that look more like buying a baby than compensating a surrogate. "It's all here." The officer looked uncomfortable. "This is way above my pay grade. You folks need lawyers. Maybe a judge. This isn't something we can sort out tonight." "Then don't," I said. "Just let this woman hold her daughter. Let these children be with someone who actually loves them. And tomorrow, we'll figure out the rest." Marcus pulled me aside. "Damon, this is a disaster. The Foundation's board is already calling for your resignation. Your business partners are panicking. Vivian's lawyer is threatening to take everything in the divorce." "Let them take it," I said. "I don't care anymore." "You don't mean that." "Yes, I do." I looked back at Naomi and the children. "That's my family right there. Not the business. Not the foundation. Not the reputation or the money or any of it. Them." Marcus stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Or maybe I'd finally found it. The police decided not to arrest anyone that night. Too complicated. Too public. They took statements, warned everyone to stay calm, and left. Most of the guests fled as quickly as possible, desperate to avoid being associated with the scandal. By 8:30, the ballroom was nearly empty. Vivian stood across the room, surrounded by her family and lawyers, shooting daggers at me with her eyes. I walked over to her. "I'm filing for full custody," she said coldly, "of all 3 children. And I'm going to bury you. Try it. The DNA evidence alone will destroy your case. Plus the falsified records. The coercion. You'll be lucky if you get supervised visitation. Those are my children. Liam and Ezra are. Nora isn't. And even with the boys, you're going to have to prove you're a fit mother. Good luck with that." She slapped me again. Harder this time. Her ring cut my cheek. "I'll make you regret this. I'll make you both regret this." "Too late," I said, touching the blood on my face. I already regret the 3 years I wasted believing your lies. But that ends tonight. I walked away from her, back to Naomi and the children. They were sitting on the floor now, Nora in Naomi's lap, the boys leaning against her on either side. They looked peaceful, complete. We need to leave, I said quietly, before this gets worse. Naomi nodded. She stood carefully, holding Nora, and I picked up Liam while one of the nurses took Ezra. We walked out of that ballroom together, leaving behind the mess and the cameras and the shattered remains of the life I used to have. Outside, the December air was cold and clean. Christmas lights twinkled in the trees. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Whatever you're going through right now, whatever truth you're afraid to tell, I want you to know it's worth it. The fear, the chaos, the cost. It's all worth it if it means living in truth instead of lies. Drop a comment and tell me what you think. Would you have done the same thing? Would you have blown up your whole life for the sake of what's right? And make sure you're subscribed, because this story isn't over yet. Not by a long shot. Tomorrow brings lawyers and judges and a fight for custody that will determine whether a mother gets to keep the daughter she never stopped loving. We spent that night at a hotel downtown. Not one of mine. Somewhere anonymous where we could disappear for a few hours. I booked a suite with connecting rooms. The nurses stayed with us, helping settle the children. By midnight, all 3 were finally asleep, exhausted from the most overwhelming night of their young lives. Naomi sat in a chair by the window, staring out at the Atlanta skyline. She hadn't said much since we left the estate. Just held Nora and whispered to her and cried silently while the city lights reflected in the glass. I brought her tea. She took it but didn't drink. I ruined your life, she said finally. No. Vivian did that years ago. You just helped me see it. Your business, your reputation, everything you built, was built on lies. I shrugged. Maybe it needed to come down so something real could take its place. She looked at me then, really looked at me. Why are you doing this? You could have paid me off. Made me sign more papers. Kept everything quiet. Because Nora deserves better. Because you deserve better. I sat down across from her. And because those children in there started living again the moment you walked into their lives. That's not something you can fake or buy or manufacture. That's real. And I'm not letting it go. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't know how to be her mother. I missed 3 years. 3 birthdays. First words. First steps. How do I get that back? You don't, I said gently. You can't change what happened. But you can be there for everything that comes next. What if the court takes her away? What if Vivian wins? Then we appeal. We fight. We don't stop fighting until Nora knows who her real mother is. Naomi set down the tea and covered her face with her hands. I never thought this would happen. When I came to your house looking for work, I just wanted to survive. To pay my bills. To get through another day. I never imagined that you'd find your daughter? She nodded. Feels like a dream. Like I'm going to wake up and she'll be gone again. She's not going anywhere. I promise you. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the distant sounds of the city. Then Naomi spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. What happens to us? You and me. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. You're a billionaire, Damon. I clean houses for a living. Even if we win custody, people are going to talk. They're going to say terrible things. Let them talk. It's not that simple. Maybe it is, I said. Maybe we've been making everything too complicated for too long. You're Nora's mother. I'm her father. We both love her. We both want what's best for her. Everything else is just noise. Naomi smiled sadly. You make it sound easy. It won't be. But it'll be worth it. My phone had been buzzing all night. Messages from business partners, board members, lawyers, reporters. I'd ignored all of them. But around 1 in the morning, a text came through that I couldn't ignore. It was from my mother. I'm at the hospital. Your father had a heart attack. Come now. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. My father and I hadn't spoken in 6 months. Not since he'd told me I was wasting my potential on charity work and should focus on building the family empire. We'd argued. I'd walked out. Neither of us had apologized. I have to go, I told Naomi, showing her the message. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Is he okay? I don't know. Stay here with the children. I'll call you as soon as I know something. The nurses assured me they'd stay all night if needed. I grabbed my coat and headed to Piedmont Hospital, my mind racing. My father was 72, stubborn as stone, and had refused to slow down despite 2 previous heart incidents. I'd begged him to retire. He'd laughed in my face. Now he might be dying. I found my mother in the cardiac wing waiting room, looking small and terrified. She stood when she saw me and I held her while she cried. They're doing surgery, she said. A blockage. The doctor said if we'd waited another hour. She didn't finish. Didn't need to. We sat together in those uncomfortable hospital chairs while machines beeped and nurses rushed past and the fluorescent lights hummed overhead. My mother held my hand like I was 10 years old again. I saw what happened tonight, she said quietly. It's all over the news. I know. Your father would be furious. I know that too. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. But I'm proud of you. I blinked, surprised. What? You told the truth. In front of everyone. Even though it cost you everything. That takes courage. Mom, I destroyed the family reputation. The foundation is probably finished. Half our business partners will drop us. Reputations can be rebuilt, she said firmly. But integrity, once you lose that, it's gone forever. You chose integrity. That matters more than what people think. I squeezed her hand, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Tell me about her, Mom said. The woman. Naomi. So I did. I told her everything. About Naomi's voice bringing the children back to life. About the DNA test. About the way Nora looked at her mother with complete recognition and trust. About how for the first time in years, I felt like I was doing something that actually mattered. My mother listened without interrupting. When I finished, she smiled. You love her. What? No. I barely know her. Damon, I've been married to your father for 45 years. I know what love looks like. And I saw it on your face just now when you talked about her. It's complicated, I said weakly. Love usually is. But that doesn't make it wrong. Before I could respond, a doctor appeared. Mr. Harrington made it through surgery. It was touch and go, but he's stable now. My mother collapsed against me in relief. When we finally got to see him 2 hours later, my father looked old and fragile in that hospital bed, hooked up to monitors and 4 lines. But his eyes were alert. Sharp. Heard you made a scene tonight, he rasped. I did. Your mother says you found your spine. Something like that. He coughed, wincing. About time. I pulled a chair close to his bed. I'm sorry we fought. I should have called. I'm sorry I was a stubborn old fool. He reached for my hand with surprising strength. Your mother told me about the girl. The maid. Her name is Naomi. You love her. I don't know. Maybe. It's too soon to tell. Life's short, son. Don't waste time pretending you don't know what you feel. He closed his eyes, exhausted. I wasted too many years building things instead of loving people. Don't make my mistakes. I sat with him until he fell asleep, then stayed another hour just watching him breathe. When I finally left the hospital, dawn was breaking over Atlanta. Christmas morning. The city looked clean and new in the early light. I called Naomi. How are the kids? Perfect. They're still sleeping. How's your father? He made it through surgery. He's going to be okay. Thank God, she breathed. I was praying all night. I'm coming back to the hotel. We need to talk about next steps. Damon, your lawyer called. Emergency custody hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Day after Christmas. My stomach dropped. That fast. Vivian's family has connections. They're pushing it through. Then we better be ready. I stopped by my lawyer's office on the way back to the hotel, even though it was Christmas morning. Marcus was there, surrounded by files and empty coffee cups, looking like he hadn't slept either. "Tell me we have a case," I said. "We have a case. It's messy and complicated and could go either way, but we have a case." He pushed a folder toward me. DNA evidence. Medical records showing the children's improvement under Naomi's care. Documentation of the coercion from the clinic. Character witnesses willing to testify about Vivian's neglect. What about Naomi's rights as biological mother? That's where it gets tricky. She signed away her rights. Even under duress, a judge might uphold that signature. So what do? We argue that she was defrauded, that the contract was obtained under false pretenses, and we show that Nora's best interests are served by having her biological mother in her life. What are our chances? 50-50. Maybe less. Vivian's team is vicious and they're going for blood. I leaned back in my chair, exhausted. What's the worst-case scenario? Vivian gets full custody of all 3 children. You get supervised visitation. Naomi gets nothing and potentially faces charges for fraud or attempted kidnapping. And best case? Joint custody for you and Vivian. Legal recognition of Naomi as Nora's biological mother with visitation rights. But Damon, even best case means years of court battles. Appeals. Motions. It's going to be ugly. I don't care. We're doing this. Marcus studied me for a long moment. You've changed. 3 weeks ago, you would have found a way to settle this quietly. Pay everyone off. Make it disappear. 3 weeks ago, I was a different person. I got back to the hotel around 10. The children were awake, eating breakfast that room service had brought up. Naomi had changed Nora into fresh clothes and was braiding her hair, something so simple and maternal it made my chest ache. Liam saw me and said a new word. Duh. Clear as day. I scooped him up, my eyes burning. That's right, buddy. Duh. Ezra repeated it, laughing. Duh, duh, duh. Even Nora joined in, her small voice adding to the chorus. And in that moment, in that hotel room with breakfast dishes scattered around and children's laughter filling the air, I felt richer than I ever had in my entire life. Naomi caught my eye over Nora's head. She mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." I shook my head. "Don't thank me yet. We still have to win in court." "We will," she said with a certainty I didn't feel. "We have to. Because she's my daughter. And I'm not losing her again." That night, Christmas night, we did something I never would have imagined. We celebrated. Not with expensive gifts or fancy meals. Just us. The children. The nurses who'd become allies. Pizza from a local place. A small tree the hotel staff brought up. Presents I'd had Marcus by that afternoon. Simple things like stuffed animals and books. Naomi sang carols while the children listened, their eyes bright and focused. We took pictures. Made memories. Built something that felt fragile and precious and real. And when the kids finally fell asleep, Naomi and I sat together on the couch in the main room, exhausted and terrified and strangely hopeful. "Whatever happens tomorrow," she said quietly, "I want you to know this was the best Christmas of my life. Mine too." She looked at me, surprised. "Really? But you lost everything." "No," I said, thinking of my children's laughter, my father's survival, the truth finally spoken out loud. "I found everything. I just didn't know I was looking for it." She rested her head on my shoulder, and we sat like that for a long time, watching the city lights twinkle through the window, gathering strength for the battle ahead. Tomorrow would bring judges and lawyers and a fight that would determine the course of all our lives. But tonight, we had peace. We had truth. We had each other. And sometimes, that's enough. If this story has touched you, if you felt the weight of choosing truth over comfort, drop a comment below. Tell me what you would do. Tell me if you think we made the right choice. And stay subscribed, because it's coming. The courtroom. The verdict. The moment everything either falls apart or finally comes together. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Cold winter light filtered through tall windows, illuminating worn wooden benches and a judge's bench that looked like it had seen 1,000 broken families pass before it. We arrived early, but Vivian's team was already there. 5 lawyers in expensive suits, whispering strategies and shuffling papers. Vivian sat in the front row wearing a navy dress and pearls, the picture of wounded dignity. Her mother sat beside her, radiating old money disapproval. They didn't look at me when I walked in. Naomi's hand trembled in mine. She'd barely slept. I could see the fear in her eyes as she took in the scene. The formality. The power imbalance. One cleaning woman against Atlanta's legal elite. Marcus met us at the defendant's table. He looked grim. Judge Patricia Okonkwo, former family court attorney. Tough but fair. She doesn't tolerate games and she puts children first above everything else. That's good, right? Should be. But Vivian's lead counsel is Derek Brennan. He's a shark. 1 custody for a pharmaceutical CEO who hadn't seen his kids in 2 years. He'll twist everything. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Okonkwo entered, a black woman in her early 60s with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. She sat down and surveyed the room with the calm authority of someone who'd heard every lie and seen every manipulation. This is an emergency custody hearing regarding the minor children Liam, Ezra, and Nora Harrington. She looked at both tables. I've reviewed the preliminary filings and I have to say, this is one of the most unusual cases I've encountered. Let's start with Mrs. Harrington's petition. Derek Brennan stood, all polished confidence. Your Honor, my client is seeking full custody of all 3 children based on Mr. Harrington's recent erratic and dangerous behavior. On Christmas Eve, in front of 200 witnesses, he brought an unstable employee into close contact with vulnerable children, made wild accusations against his wife, and created a chaotic scene that traumatized 3 special needs minors. That's not what happened, I started to say, but Marcus put a hand on my arm. The judge raised an eyebrow. You'll have your turn, Mr. Harrington. Continue, Mr. Brennan. Furthermore, Your Honor, this employee, Ms. Naomi Brooks, has insinuated herself into the family under false pretenses. She was hired as domestic help but has been conducting unauthorized therapy sessions with children who require specialized medical care. Mr. Harrington has enabled this behavior, prioritizing his personal relationship with Ms. Brooks over the safety and well-being of his children. Personal relationship. I felt Naomi stiffen beside me. We have evidence that Ms. Brooks has been entering the Harrington home late at night, spending hours alone with the children, creating an inappropriate attachment. Mr. Harrington facilitated this, even giving her keys and access codes. This represents a complete breakdown of judgment. Judge Okonkwo made a note. What's your evidence regarding harm to the children? Brennan pulled out a folder. We have statements from medical professionals expressing concern about untrained intervention. Dr. Patricia Morrison, the children's developmental pediatrician, states that interrupting established therapy protocols can cause regression and confusion. Your Honor, Marcus stood quickly. Dr. Morrison hasn't actually examined the children in 6 weeks. She has no direct knowledge of their current condition. Because Mr. Harrington canceled their appointments, Brennan shot back. Further evidence of his disregard for professional medical guidance. The judge looked at me. Is that true? Mr. Harrington? I canceled appointments with doctors who'd done nothing for 3 years except collect fees and tell me to accept my children's limitations. The real progress started when those appointments stopped. Judge Okonkwo's expression didn't change. We'll hear testimony on that. What else, Mr. Brennan? Vivian's lawyer spent the next 20 minutes painting me as unstable, reckless, having a mental breakdown. He talked about the scandal, the damage to the children's privacy, the media circus. He made it sound like I deliberately destroyed my family for selfish reasons. Then he turned his attention to Naomi. Ms. Brooks claims to be the biological mother of Nora Harrington. Even if DNA evidence supports this, which we dispute, she voluntarily terminated her parental rights 3 years ago. She was compensated appropriately and signed legal documents. She cannot now, years later, simply change her mind because she regrets her choice. Naomi's grip on my hand tightened painfully. Moreover, Ms. Brooks has no resources, no stability, and no experience raising children. She's a widow with a history of depression who works minimum wage jobs. Granting her any custody or visitation would be detrimental to Nora's development and security. He sat down looking satisfied. I wanted to punch him. Judge Okonkwo turned to our table. Mr. Marcus, your response? Marcus stood, calm and measured. Your Honor, we're not disputing that Ms. Brooks signed documents 3 years ago. We're arguing those documents were obtained through coercion and fraud. The clinic that handled the surrogacy arrangement engaged in unethical practices, pressuring a vulnerable young woman to give up her child while misrepresenting her rights and options. He pulled out his own files. We have emails from Dr. Sullivan at Northside Clinic explicitly telling Ms. Brooks she had no choice, that keeping the baby would be selfish, that she could face legal action if she changed her mind. This isn't informed consent. This is manipulation. The judge looked interested. Do you have this Dr. Sullivan available to testify? No, Your Honor. She left the country 18 months ago after the clinic was investigated for irregularities. But we have documentation. Convenient, Brennan muttered loud enough to be heard. Marcus ignored him. More importantly, Your Honor, we have evidence of the children's remarkable progress under Ms. Brooks' care. All 3 children have shown developmental advances in the past 3 weeks that exceed 3 years of professional therapy. They're vocalizing, bearing weight, showing emotional connection. This isn't coincidence. The judge made another note. I'll want to hear from medical experts about that. What about Mrs. Harrington's role? Marcus took a breath. Mrs. Harrington used a surrogate without informing her husband. She falsified medical records to make it appear all 3 children were biologically hers. She paid off clinic staff to hide the arrangement. When the truth emerged, instead of acknowledging her deception, she attempted to have Ms. Brooks arrested and is now seeking to completely erase the biological mother from Nora's life. That's a mischaracterization, Brennan objected. Is it? Marcus pulled out more documents. Here are the falsified birth certificates. Here are payment records showing hush money to clinic employees. Here are Mrs. Harrington's own text messages discussing how to keep the surrogacy secret from her husband and family. The judge's eyebrows rose. Mrs. Harrington, did you deceive your husband about the children's parentage? Vivian stood, her voice shaking with what looked like genuine emotion. I was trying to protect my family, Your Honor. The surrogacy was medically necessary but socially complicated. I made difficult choices in an impossible situation. You lied to your husband for 3 years. I protected our children from scandal and judgment. By erasing their biological mother's existence? Vivian's composure cracked slightly. That woman gave up her rights. She was paid. She moved on with her life. Until she unknowingly came to work in your home and discovered her daughter, Marcus said quietly. The judge held up a hand. I want to hear from Ms. Brooks directly. Ms. Brooks, please stand. Naomi stood on shaking legs. I could feel her terror radiating outward. Why did you take a job with the Harringtons? Did you know about the children beforehand? No, Your Honor. Naomi's voice was barely audible. The nursing home where I worked closed. I needed a job. I applied through an agency. I had no idea whose house it was or that my daughter might be there. When did you realize? The first time I saw Nora. She looked at me and I felt something I couldn't explain. But I told myself I was imagining things. It wasn't until I saw a birthmark on her shoulder, the same birthmark I remembered from the 5 minutes I held her after birth, that I knew for certain. Why didn't you come forward immediately? Because I was terrified, Naomi said, tears starting to fall. I'd signed papers saying I'd never contact her. I had no proof. I thought I'd be arrested or fired or worse. But I couldn't stay away. She's my daughter. Every instinct in my body knew it. Judge Okonkwo studied her for a long moment. Do you love this child? More than anything in this world, Naomi whispered. I've loved her every day since she was born. Even when I didn't know where she was or if she was okay. She's always been my daughter. The courtroom was silent. Even Brennan looked uncomfortable. The judge looked at her notes. I'm going to hear from the children's doctors. Then I'll make a decision about temporary custody pending a full trial. We're adjourned until 2 o'clock. The next 3 hours were agony. We ate lunch in a conference room nearby, but no one had much appetite. Naomi kept checking her phone, looking at pictures of Nora. I tried to reassure her, but the truth was I had no idea which way this would go. When court reconvened, Dr. Patel was the first witness. Marcus questioned him about the children's progress. In my 15 years of pediatric neurology, I've never seen developmental advances this rapid or pronounced, Dr. Patel testified. 3 weeks ago, these children were essentially nonverbal and immobile. Today they're walking, vocalizing, and showing age-appropriate emotional responses. What do you attribute this to? The only variable that changed was Ms. Brooks' involvement. Her presence, her voice, her consistent nurturing care. Whatever she's doing, it's working. Brennan cross-examined. Couldn't this just be natural development? Children progress at different rates. Not like this. Not after 3 years of plateau. Something specific triggered this change. Then why haven't other caregivers achieved the same results? Dr. Patel looked directly at Naomi. Because none of them were the children's mother. The judge called a recess. When she returned, her expression was unreadable. I've made a decision regarding temporary custody. This is not a final ruling, just arrangements until we can have a full hearing with more evidence and testimony. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. Mr. and Mrs. Harrington will share joint temporary custody of Liam and Ezra. However, given the unique circumstances regarding Nora, I'm granting temporary primary physical custody to Mr. Harrington with significant visitation rights to Ms. Brooks. Vivian gasped. Your Honor, you can't. I can and I am, Judge Okonkwo said firmly. Ms. Brooks is Nora's biological mother. The evidence of coercion in the original agreement is compelling. And most importantly, Nora has shown dramatic improvement in her care. Until we can fully adjudicate this matter, the child's best interests are served by maintaining that relationship. She looked at Naomi. Ms. Brooks, you'll have supervised visitation initially, but if things continue positively, we'll expand that. Am I clear? Yes, Your Honor, Naomi whispered, tears streaming down her face. As for Mrs. Harrington, the judge's voice turned hard. I'm very troubled by the deception documented in this case. Falsifying medical records and hiding a child's parentage from their father is serious. We'll be addressing that fully at trial. Vivian looked like she'd been slapped. Court adjourned. I'll see you all back here in 30 days. The gavel came down. Naomi collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Marcus was grinning. Across the aisle, Vivian was screaming at her lawyers. I pulled Naomi into my arms. You get to be her mother. You hear me? You get to be her mother. She clung to me, shaking with relief and joy and disbelief all mixed together. We left that courthouse into the cold December afternoon. The media was waiting, cameras and microphones thrust in our faces. But I didn't care. I held Naomi's hand and pushed through the crowd to the car where the children were waiting with their nurse. When Nora saw Naomi, she reached out her arms and said it again. Mama. Naomi lifted her daughter and held her like she'd never let go. And standing there on the courthouse steps with cameras flashing and reporters shouting and my whole life turned upside down, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. If you've made it this far, thank you. Comment below and tell me what this story meant to you. Share it with someone who needs to hear that truth always wins, even when it costs everything. And subscribe, because life doesn't end at the courthouse. There's still a future to build, a family to heal, and a love story that's just beginning. This is Damon Harrington, and this is how my family found its way home.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.